Well, welcoming everyone to a new episode of the Nordic Football Podcast, and I've got a special guest with me on this edition. It is none other than Shaun Constable. Welcome in, Shaun. I tried to go back and sort of research how many times you've been on the Nordic Football Podcast, but the actual answer is several occasions. It's fantastic to have you back on here. A great friend of the pod.
Yeah,
Great to see you. Hope you're doing okay.
yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good. Little bit of difficult times at the moment at the club, but that's football, isn't it? You know how it
Mm.
is.
Yes, it is ups and downs. I mean, you're a man who've been, been up there in Scandinavia for several seasons now. Started
Mm,
assistant manager at Sandefjord for nearly 200 games.
mm,
Managed Bromma Poikana in Sweden, Moss as well. Ostersund, you've been up there as an assistant, and now you're
yeah,
at a team called Flint, which
yeah,
is in the fourth tier of Norwegian
yeah,
football, officially Division 3, Group
yeah,
6. I don't know
yeah,
quite why you changed groups this season, Shaun, but
yeah.
just tell us a bit about the journey at Flint and how you got there. I know you've had two promotions. You had a solid season last season. Take us through that journey at Flint.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the main reason I'm there is a guy called Ronnie Hommerdal, who's, to be honest with you, he's kind of been linked in my life a little bit like this pod in some ways. And he was in Sandefjord when I was in a team called Ernhotten when I was working with I was just a top player developer, Spilutvikler in Norwegian they call it, and basically my contract was coming towards an end, and they came and headhunted me. So I went. That's how I got to Sandefjord. And then while I was there, he's the one who was pushing Lars Bohinen into like, hey, you need to bring Shaun up into the first team to start coaching with them. And kind of that's how I ended up being the assistant and Spieler Udvikler in Sandefjord. And Ronnie is he's working with not the Norwegian Federation, the coaching side of it, and he's 25 or 25, 30% sports director in Flint. And when I lost my job in Moss, he contacted me and he was like, would you be interested? I know it's a step down. Well, of course, when I went there, they were in level 5, so I had to take over after Unanarisa escapades there. Which and to be fair, I felt sorry for him because just to digress really quickly, they got relegated from the third division, and it was the only Norway did it. All the other leagues at that level, they had the promotion because the leagues above were playing, like 100% league. But the lower down ones, they only played half a season, so they played 13 games, and then they still did 3 relegations into the level below. So I thought it was a little bit unlucky at the time for him and also for Flint. So, but that's how I ended up in Flint, and it's the reason I've gone there is that it's a project to try and lift the club up to the next level, definitely into Post Nord, which is third level in Norway.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a team in the southwest region of Norway, and
Mm,
you join them, and you've already had a great promotion.
mm,
The Division 4 then the fourth tier level of Norwegian football. I mean, obviously the top leagues get a lot of attention. Everyone watches
yeah,
them. I'm really interested what it's like in the fourth tier. What sort of tactics do we get? What sort of players? Is there a lot of young
mm,
talents around? It's
yeah,
probably one of those where I'm sure it's better than what a lot of people actually think.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I've just wondered what sort of tactics and level and styles we've got. I'm presuming there's loads of artificial pitches at this
yeah,
level as well.
yeah. Funny actually, this season we've got two teams with grass pitches, so
Mm.
we just played them, and we're really fortunate because we're the biggest club in Vestfold in the county. We have around about 1,300 kids in our club, plus the senior players. So it's a big club. I think it's in terms of the size from 6 years of age up to senior football, both men and women, boys and girls. It's in the top 5 or 6 in Norway. So it's a big club like in that respect. I call it a big small club because it's a big youth club and development, but not quite done the same levels with the first team. So that's the idea to bring. Ronnie brought me in the same as him, is to lift the professionalism up. The one thing I can say about the level now is that with the we can probably touch on this a little bit later on, but with with the development of academy football in Norway, because it's behind the rest of Scandinavia, but it's catching up really quickly. And I think what's happening is that the consequences of that, and you see it in England, don't you? That in the Premiership, it's like dominoes, isn't it? In the Premiership, you get players from all over the world, and then the next group that can't quite make that level go into the Championship, and then there's another big group of players from the Championship going into League One and then League Two. So the level of the players going down is getting better and better, isn't it? Because they can't all get signed. So it's a little bit the same now. So I have a lot of players in my team that have been in Sandefjord Academy. So they've got good education, good players, but they just haven't been given contracts. So they still have aspirations to go and be professional football players. So it's like semi-professional. I would say the equivalent would be maybe not the physicality, but definitely the tactical and technical is probably the same level as what would you call National League North and South.
Yeah,
Is what
that's exactly the sort of comparison I was after, really.
yeah,
And I thought it might be that sort of case. You've got so there's 14 teams in each division, home and
yeah,
away, and there's several second teams that you're facing here. The likes of Sarpsborg 2, Stabæk 2, Fredrikstad as well, Odd 2.
odd, yeah,
Um, you
cool.
know, yeah, pause as well. Last season, you comfortably survived by nearly 15 points, I do believe, in the
Yeah,
group you're in. Not such a, it's been a tough start this season in the league itself,
yeah,
but there's still quite a long way to go. I mean,
yeah.
how much better are some of these teams that you're having to face this season, Shaun? Because I've looked at some of the odds at the games, and it's quite lopsided. So, are you
Mm.
facing some real, you know, juggernaut sides for this level of Norwegian football?
The funny thing is, no, last year was much harder. But the difference last season was that there was 3, 4 teams that were like a lot weaker, and then there was 3 or 4 teams at the top that were a lot stronger because they came down from Post Nord. So this year, I would say that there's not like any like one team that really stands out. Actually, to be fair, Sarpsborg 2, they're really strong, but they want to get promoted this year into Post Nord. They've they've changed their business model at the club. They have less players making it through from their academy. So what they do is they going out into the third division in Oslo, even some players in Post Nord at 20, 21 years of age, and taking them into their environment. So they're looking to sort of change a little bit of the tact what they're trying to do. So what I will say is that the level of the second teams has definitely improved over the years. There's no doubt. When I
Mm.
was coaching Sandefjord too, it was we had really good players, but now they're starting at kids at 13 in like what would you call it? We call it hospitaling over here, but like they get invited in for the weekend. So they play in their clubs. Like we've got 8 players in 13-year-olds all training with Sandefjord 3 times a week. So the level of education they're getting is much higher. So now when you play the second teams, even though they're 17, 18, 19-year-olds, the level's really high. So we've had a really tough time against them, and we play odd on Sunday, in what now is a cup final in some ways for us because we have 6 losses in a row, and it's out of those 6 losses, 2 of them we deserve. The rest could have gone either way, and that's how tight it is.
Mm.
But I will say, like the level of coaches, there's coaches like me with lots of experience. The guy in Frama we played against last week, he's been in Stabæk for 8 years, academy coach. He's worked in Bottom in Post Nord. So there's a lot of good coaches out there, and the tactical side of the game is much more advanced than what people give it credit for. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I kind of expected. I mean, I've noticed that Obos has got a lot better in the last 4 or 5 years, and often the
Yeah,
knock-on effect is below that. It's going to be exactly the same, and it
yeah,
sounds like this is kind of happening in this fourth tier now. So, I
yeah.
mean, for you as a club for Flint, would a good season be staying in the division a
Now,
sort of a
now it
target?
would.
Yeah, now it would. Yeah,
Yeah, now it would. And to be honest, at the beginning of the season, when I looked at it, I thought, oh, if my budget was a little bit higher, if I added those 4 extra players in, we probably would be in the top 3, top 4. So that's how tight it is. We played Fram, we lost 3-2, and to be fair, if you look at the stats, there's no way we should lose that game. But we give away at the moment. You know when it's like when you're down there, all of a sudden that little mistake you make, you get punished for it. And that seems to be where we are a little bit at the moment. But we had more possession, we had more shots on target, we had more corners than they did, and they were at home. So we dominated the second half, but we didn't finish. And the difference is that their budget's 1.6 million. So that's what 160 odd thousand. This doesn't seem like a lot in English, but over here it is, and mine's half that budget. So
Hmm.
the reason was, my striker narrowly missed 2 or 3 chances. Their striker scored 2 goals, and they
Yeah,
played
it's
quite.
tight margins, and obviously you've
Yeah,
got 26 games as well. It's a much
yeah,
shorter campaign than say 38 in the Premier League. Feels like
exactly.
every game matters, especially some of the big games against the ones that you got to beat.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you got a definitive style that you personally use with the club that's been ongoing, or have you got to mix it up now a lot more with the level improving?
I basically what it is that people watch videos, like I watch videos of the opposition. I do, I basically the kind of work that I do, maybe not quite as heavy in the detail, but the work I do is the same as what I did in Brummerpoiken and the same I did in Moss, the same I was doing in Ostersund. Okay, we I don't have Y Scout, but we have a thing called Direct Sport where you can get most of the games, and you've got VO for our own games, that we use. So the analysing of teams, and we're a football playing team. Formations is not an issue for me. It's more about how we play. I'm not bothered about the formation. Sometimes away from home, I've gone and played the 3-5-2. With 2 strikers, one quite decent sized striker, and the other one is really quick. With 2 wing backs that are very fast, and be a little bit more defensive minded and play a little bit more transitional. But we predominantly play 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. You know, um, and I play with my wingers a little bit inside as well at times. A lot of the time in the build up, so we get the eights high, the wingers inside, and we get the overload in the wide areas with the fullbacks. So I like to play football, but you have to be smart, don't you? And if a team knows that we like to build up, we like to play out from the back, what are they going to do? They're going to press us, especially away from home. So absolutely, for me, I keep telling the boys, you've got to recognise the moments when, if the press is good and it's hard, you need to go over. And football's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. It's either over, it's through, or around. Football will never change from that.
Yeah.
So it might sound a little bit basic, but that's the facts. So, and how you get the ball from A to B, there's many different ways, isn't there? So I think sometimes I don't understand. I get a little bit frustrated when I hear a lot of coaches saying, "This is my style. I'm not going to change." Okay, that's fair enough. But if you start, we're losing games at the moment, but I would like to think that it's okay to have variation. I think the first time you saw Edison hit a 70-meter diagonal in behind the back line playing for Man City when Pep Guardiola's the coach, then it doesn't matter if you go long anymore. Simple.
Do do you think, Sean? This is a little bit off topic, but I think there's several managers in the game today, especially in the top 2 leagues of certain countries. And you're right, they only play one way. And if they get a bad result, often the pundits are out there still praise them because they
Mm,
stick to their principles and stuff like that. It
mm,
feels to me quite a selfish way to go about it. And don't get me wrong, you've got to look after your own self as well in life. Of course you have.
yeah.
But I look at the likes of, perhaps Russell Martin, Vincent Company, people like that.
Mm,
And Amarim at Man United now has come
mm,
in and it's just playing one way with the
mm,
odd tweak. And it's
mm,
like there's no indication that it's almost that they daren't go anything different because it's going to look bad on them. I
mm.
just see a lot of that in football these days. I don't know if you got any thoughts on that.
I think it's more prevalent than I think it's ever been, isn't it? For me, um, I know like Russell Martin is a very, very good football coach, really good. You can see by the way he gets his teams to play, brilliant. But there has to come a point where you're like, hang on, I don't have the players here. We're not set up to do this. So what is the problem with having variation? I don't understand it myself. Amorim for me, I think because he's such a good character, charismatic character, and he speaks really well. He's very honest. They say maybe a little bit too honest at times. You know what I mean? And for me, then it's like he gets away with a lot more than he should do. I think he should be hammered for the way that he's gone about this season. When I was on my A license in Scotland, we had 6 Portuguese guys, and they're really, all of them were super smart. 2 of them have gone on in Europe and coached, at a really high level, Portuguese highest level, and all the others have ended up in really good places. 3 of them actually, and they all seemed super smart for me, and they weren't worried about formations. It was like how they played; they could move things around. So I feel like Amarim coming in, going, I play 3-4-3. That's it. This is what I'm going to stay with, regardless if I got the players or not. I just find it really strange, and obviously he must have the backing. He must have the backing of the hierarchy, or he wouldn't continue doing it. You like Vincent Kompany? Does Russell Martin? Does he do what he did at Southampton and get them relegated? And does he get the Bayern Munich job? No, because he's Russell Martin. He's not Vincent Kompany. Vincent Kompany, in the end, does an amazing job in the Championship, doesn't he? Get them promoted. They scored the most goals. They were brilliant how they watched them play. Came up to the Premiership, couldn't do it. Continue playing it. This is me. This is my brand. It's not like, what about the club? And you're a custodian for the club, in many ways. This is what I'm going to do. And then he ends up with a Bayern Munich job. I mean, that's kind of insane, isn't it, really?
Yeah, he was about 10th choice. You were on
maybe.
that shortlist, weren't you, Shaun, to be fair?
I wish I was. I'd be the pit man.
But Russell Martin, to be fair, I really rate him as well, and he made a couple of good appearances on Sky Monday Night Football over here, and he suggested that if he had his time again, he actually would have recruited different types of players, rather than. But again, you're right what you said. Sometimes you do have to realise you haven't got the players for it, and maybe adapt in that sort of way. I think it's a fascinating debate at the minute. There's a lot of this going around, and a lot of managers do get an easy cop out. Amarim, I agree with you. I think he should have been slated a lot more for what he's done. Let's just go back to your club. And one really good moment for you this season was in the Norwegian Cup. You just mentioned you're going to be facing the odd second team soon. You've already beaten odd's first team in the Norwegian Cup, 3-2. You were 20-1 with the bookies, which is massive in odds for that.
Yeah.
You've had success in the Norwegian Cup before. It's obviously a competition you quite like it. How do you go about such an upset in that? I think that's a great moment.
Mate, to be honest with you, it's one of those moments where you hope that they have a slight off day and you have your bubble, and we had it. I think in some ways they kind of played into our hands by the way they set up and the way they came at us a little bit. And they mixed their team. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't their full-blown first team, but they're still professional football players compared to us. And we had an unbelievable goal disallowed as well, so we could have gone 2-0 up.
You don't have VAR in the Norwegian Cup, do you?
Please, mate, if we had the VAR, there's a lot of debate over here about VAR, for Christ's sake. But still, no, we played really, really well. When we needed a little bit of luck, we got it. My goalkeeper. I mean, there's a clip I could show you, mate. It's hilarious. It's like Keystone Cop stuff. There's a ball bouncing in the box. It's hit the post. The goalkeeper's made a save. My centre half has dived in. It's hit him. It's bounced somewhere else. It was like ping pong in there, and then all of a sudden we clear it, and it's still 2-1. And our third goal, the transition goal, was really, really good. Really, really, absolutely top goal, to be honest with you. And we hung on, we just hung on, and we had our purple day,
Yeah, it feels like there's been several sort of success stories for giant killings in the early rounds, both Norwegian Cup, Swedish Cup as well. I also feel like maybe this cup has been treated with more respect by some of the big teams in recent years. It's a gateway to Europe. Fredrikstad, who won it last season, they get they actually qualifying starts in Europa League now, which ultimately gives them a far better chance down the line of making even the Conference League. We've seen the run that Djurgården have had in Europe as well. These cups, how important is like the Norwegian Cup now in the structure of Norwegian football? Obviously, elite area in the league's always going to be the main bread and butter, but are teams even more serious about it than they used to be, do you think?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And, getting into the chance to get into Europe, Fredrikstad wouldn't have expected that. And we played them in the next round, Fredrikstad. And I know one of the coaches there really well. I coached him when he was I kind of coached him a little bit when he was a player in Sandefjord, but he left quite early because he had a head injury. Actually, he had to retire. And he's been around, and I had a good chat with him the day before the game, and I spoke to him after the game, and he said, we treated you like an elite sitting team. We watched 4 of your games. We analysed you. We knew where you were weak. And to be honest with you, they smashed us. They smashed us. They knew exactly what they were doing. 2 set pieces, 6 minutes into the game, 2-0 down. It was done and dusted. They were serious when they came to us, and I really like that. I like that. That's professional. Odd was serious as well. I'm not saying that they weren't. They were, but they weren't leaving anything to chance. So they played a really strong team against us. So of course, if it gives a chance of a team to get into Europe, that money that can come in. We know. Look what happened. Look what's happening with Buda Glimt. It's huge what they're now money wise. I mean, you would say like Malmo, Copenhagen, over here, Rosenborg, maybe Vålerenga, or whatever. I mean, now obviously Molde have got a lot of money, but if you think of like the old school powerhouses of Scandinavian football, Copenhagen, Malmo, Rosenborg, Buda Glimt are blowing them out of the water, and
Yeah.
financially, small club, still a small club compared to all those three. Probably financially, I don't know the outcome of it, but my God, they must be, way in front, and you can see some of the money they're spending. So, and like you say, Djurgården having a great run is brilliant for Swedish football, good for Scandinavian football. The same as Buda Glimt doing really well. The Danish team seem to be struggling, really.
Yeah, they are. I mean, last year the champions were Midtjylland. They got knocked out of qualifying by Slovan
Yeah,
Bratislava.
yeah,
I mean, Bratislava were awful in the group stage. They were probably the worst team. So
yeah,
that's disappointing for the Danish league that they've got
mm,
knocked out that in that way. But it's true what you said there. Norway, Sweden, the coefficient is improving. Norway, especially, it's been ongoing for quite some time.
yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, I mean, especially Buda, the coefficient I think is now at 50 points.
Yeah,
They're going to be the top seed in the final qualifying round now, via the Champions Path,
that's mad,
and
isn't it?
it
That's
is,
mad.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, what does this sort of improvement in not? I mean, Mulder obviously had a good run as well, and it looks like the Swedish coefficient's improving. What does it do for the state of the game up there? I mean, could this even be like a knock-on effect for the teams in tier 3, tier 4 down the line with more money coming into the game? How important is it for Norwegian football?
It's the same. It's the same as everywhere, mate. The top divisions get the money. Where we are, we don't get a lot. We don't see a lot of that, and the main reason for that is also developing the academies and the extra income that they get from producing players as well. There's no doubt there's a little influx at the moment of very technically gifted players coming out of Norway, and now if you can get teams that can be in Europe and can compete, you'll end up instead of losing that 17, 16, 18 year old over to England or somewhere else. Maybe they stay until they're a little bit older now and in Norway because they get great experience now. Playing. You see some of the players in Buda Glimt and obviously a little bit different in Molde because they have to they have to invest in some young players. I think they're a little bit old now. One of the oldest teams, I think, in the elite setting actually. So they've
Mm.
they've missed a step there, but that's the story for another time maybe. But right now, of course, it's developing, in a really positive way. And I would say that maybe now, I would say before Denmark was an outlier in Scandinavian football, but I don't think they are now. I think Sweden and Norway have definitely caught up on them. And Buda Glimt have blown everybody out of the water. Let's face it, they've been
I mean, in
unbelievable.
terms of Glimt, right? You made the point that they're very rich now. The money they've made, not just from the European
Mm,
adventures, but they're selling players, buying them
yeah,
cheap, selling them on for a lot.
yeah,
I mean, is there a case now? I mean, Malmo, I followed Malmo for years, and they tend to, on average, win a title probably about every 3 out of 4 years,
yeah,
right? And they always have like one down, one bad season somewhere.
yeah.
I just can't even see Buda Glimt out of the top two for a while. Even
No,
if, the manager changes and stuff like that, they could really dominate the way that Rosenborg did for years. I mean, that's the way I see it.
yeah,
Because even if they finish second now with the coefficient as it is, there's probably quite an easy way into Europe
yeah,
because you start in the Champions League.
yeah. 100%. that how they work is really really spot on. And so that the sports director, he used to be the head coach there, didn't he? His son plays at left back, Osmond, and
Yeah,
he's
Ken. Yeah,
yeah, they're 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 really on it. They're really on it. I mean, I remember a long time ago when I was at Brommerpoiken, he came over to look at one of my players, and he was 17, scored 18 goals as a left winger, in a decent level over in level 3 in Sweden. And he said, yeah, like him, good player. Seen him play for Sweden, hasn't got the intensity, both with and without the ball, that we require. And I was like, wow, he was a really good player. So it shows you that they know exactly the type of player that they want. They're not mucking about. So they have clear definition. This is what a right back want. This is what we want a right back to look like. This is what we want our left back to look like. This is what we want our centre half to look like. So that means inside of their recruitment, they are precise. They don't waste many. Look at most of their signings over the last 4 or 5 years. There's not many that have not succeeded. It's been crazy.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really spot on.
it's been a remarkable run. They
Mm.
rarely fail with a transfer. Not many spring to mind at all. It's changed the dynamic of Norwegian football. Obviously, Rosenborg were a big dog. Some would say they still are the biggest club. That's really hard to gauge. What is, when we talk about big clubs anywhere in the
They have
world,
the
it can
history.
change. Yeah.
History. History.
Brand Viking would also have something to say about
Yep.
it. But I
Yep.
think what's happened is Rosenborg have obviously dropped down to a bit. They're improving this season as we speak.
Yep.
They're actually on the field. They're one up against Fredrikstad. They're doing a lot better this season. They
Mm.
need to sort themselves out pretty quickly. Winning the Norwegian Cup or something, getting into the
Yeah.
top two, that would probably be good for them.
Yeah.
Because they have certainly dropped right for the roots. They were like here, and now they're sort
Oh
of
yeah.
here, aren't they?
But you remember? I think the last time I was on the pod was a few years ago, and it was on New Year's Eve, wasn't it? And
Yes.
I absolutely slated Rosenborg. You remember? Because I was like, they brought in Sheto Rekdal, and I was just like, what are you doing? And then when they went through that process, the next coach that they went for was the young. I forget his name now. I apologize for that, but I don't know how old he is. From Copenhagen under
Yeah.
19s, and he become the head
Alfred
coach.
Johansson, yeah.
Yeah,
Very young.
yeah, and the funny thing about it is that he came over to Sandefjord when I was coaching when he was younger and spent a week over with us, watching how we worked and stuff like that. And the assistant coach he's got Jordi, which is a Spanish guy, and he came with Marti Fuentes to Sandefjord. So and then he went over. He's been obviously went over to Sweden and worked in is it Elfsborg, wasn't it, that they won the league, and they know each other, and then now they're working. Obviously, there's a few more coaches there in Rosenborg, and they have what they've done is they've got a really young squad. They have a much younger squad than they've had for many years, and it works. And that relationship, actually, young coach, young players, get them to play, and they play good football, and they really kind of found a little bit of that Rosenborg essence again, and that's what they needed to do. So I was impressed for them because impressed by them because that's way out of the box decision, and the kind of like everybody was like, "Wow, you take an under 19 coach from Copenhagen and chuck him in." So, but at the moment, I think in the second half of the season, they were the second form team in the league, I believe.
Yeah. I think, like you said, they maybe had to think outside the box and change. Something had to change. What
Definitely.
the points that you made that time here were very, very valid. And they had to change something. It looks like they're back on track. Jonathan had an interview with the sporting director pre-season. To be fair, I like what I heard from what he was saying. And I think at the moment, I think I think Lint will win the league. I think second place is up for grabs, and they could be the team that gets it. So it's really interesting in that respect. And obviously moving on from club football now, the region is improving in general. We talked about academies before. We're now at a state where the Norwegian national team, and Swedish for that matter, they've got some really impressive looking talents, especially offensively. We've got the likes of Haaland now, Sherlock, Jokeres, Isak. Combined, they must be worth, what, £500 million, possibly.
Ødegaard.
Odegaard as well. Yeah, Norway we've talked about the Norwegian national team before, me and you,
Mm.
and it's been a lean run of qualification. Surely this time, the World Cup 2026, they've started well, 2 wins out of 2. Italy are in the group. It's not a great Italy anymore. They've
No,
got to qualify for this World Cup, whether it's via the playoffs or whatever. Surely, Shaun, this is the moment.
I think the biggest. It's a funny thing. It's an interesting debate in Norwegian football right now because what's happened is I think I'm not absolutely 100% clear, but I know that the NFF have followed a little bit of the Spanish kind of blueprint, about producing players. And also, there's no doubt with having lots and lots of 4G pitches, and now these 4G pitches, the way that they are, and the amount of water they put on the 4G pitches, the speed of how the ball moves, so the Norwegian football is developing lots and lots of technically gifted players. There's no doubt about that. But the funny thing is that when back in the old days, I'm quite a little bit older than you to say the least. But you're talking about Hemingberg, aren't you? And some of the even Risa and stuff, strong defensive players, physical. I know they had a few attackers as well. Right now in Norwegian football, there is a lack of quality centre halves. There's no doubt about that, and maybe almost that even though Berg is still fantastic in himself, but maybe almost like a little bit of an enforcer, number 6 in midfield, a bit more physical, breaking play up, giving it
Yeah.
to Erdegaard, giving it to the offensive players. So, but there's definitely, I think defensively, Norway have a problem. I think they're a little bit weak, and I also think there's a little bit to do with goalkeepers as well. So there's a little drop off in that. Everybody now, when you're doing trials, you're like, where do you want to play? I want to be a number 10. I want to be a 9. They want to be sexy football players, if you understand me. Nobody wants to be the right back anymore. Do you know what I mean? Even though right and left backs nowadays get much more possession of the ball. But I think the only thing that can make them slip up is their defensive deficiencies. To be honest with you.
Yes, which probably means they're in a position where they've got to win shootouts from time to time,
Definitely,
because
definitely.
that's the strength. And I think maybe now I feel like this coaching regime has actually realised that, and it's kind of working a little bit better. You're absolutely. I've
Yeah,
had a big problem with the goalkeeper for years with the Norwegian national team, and I don't
yeah,
know why they can't produce. I think they can produce the keepers. It's just the good keepers always seem to have the wrong career moves, Shaun.
yeah,
Like they go somewhere and they never they go and they're like the bench goalkeeper and they
mm,
stay there and it doesn't develop. There has been talent in domestically, but some of the
yeah,
moves have been really poor. The lad at
yeah,
Brentford, I like him, centre back,
yeah,
Christopher Ayer. I mean, he can play a lot of roles, but
yeah.
you're right. He's not world class or anything like that. He's decent enough, but that's an area that they could maybe improve. I mean, why do you think that we've got this position where there are so many strong attacking players? Is it that that coaching that you mentioned and the 4G pitches, the technical side of things, and people just wanting to be generally you want to be that world beater attacker growing up because it's just there is some really strong offensive players in this Norwegian team and technical as well.
100%. I just think it's just through having these so many 4G pitches and stuff, and like when I was growing up, you're playing on the street or playing on a dodgy pitch. You know what I mean? You have to be able to look around you and scan, that they call it now, scanning all the time. That's what everybody keeps saying about scanning, which is huge. And then also see where the ball's bouncing at the same time. You don't need to do that anymore on these pitches. Do you know? Even when I was at Leeds United, the pitches at the academy, unbelievable pitches at Leeds, like they are everywhere now in the academies. The ball just runs straight to you. So it's much easier in many ways to look, but the game is quicker. I take that on board completely. So, and I think it is a little bit of a mindset of want to be a creative player or whatever. But, you know, I don't, I think maybe there's a lack of maybe quality in terms of working with defensive structure, because now it's all about what's your profile. Oh, yeah, we're a team who builds up. We like to play this football. We want to get our number 10 on the ball in a half space and blah, blah, blah. So I think it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of the culture's changed over, whereas we all know the teams in the 90s of Norway national team were very, very successful, weren't they? They were physical,
Yeah,
strong,
they were.
could run, work hard. Yes, they had some really good players as well. I mean, Lars Bohinen, good technical player. Sheto Rekdal as a striker up front, fantastic player himself. Do you know what I mean? So, and then going into Torrente Flo and all the other guys. So, but if you look at them defensively, they were strong, weren't they? They were solid, good goalkeepers, solid right, left back, centre halves, big, powerful. Ronnie Johnson, rapid, really fast. So you could play Hemmenberg and Ronnie Johnson together. Hemmenberg, quality, reading the game, ball went over the top. Ronnie Johnson had the speed to go and cover. So it's also about finding the right combinations, I think. And I know that the the coaching staff in the national team have been heavily criticised for some of the decisions they made with the centre halves. There's been a few ifs and moans and groans about it, keeping a little bit with the old guard that have not been really successful at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was surprised that the Norwegian FA actually kept faith with the coaching setup. To be fair, but it looks like I like what I've seen in the last sort of 12 months actually, and it would be big for the nation to qualify for the World Cup and get some experience in that respect. From what you've seen and what you know of, do you see any signs of those defenders coming through the ranks potentially in the next 4 or 5 years or not?
I don't know. I know that like if I can speak like for Sandefjord Football, I know that they're working really hard with bringing a couple of players through. Some of the youngsters, they're quite keen on making sure that we can we produce, and I think that a lot of the academies are producing good players for the Norwegian league, for the Norwegian level. But maybe the guy is Ostergaard in Napoli. Is it Ostergaard? I can't remember.
Yes, yeah, former Coventry, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, and what a guy he is, but he's just probably a little bit too small to be like really high level. So he's aggressive. He's got all the attributes that you need, but maybe the physicality side of it, he's not quite there in terms of like size and that part of it. So I mean, nowadays, looking at Saliba playing for France. You know what I mean? Kanate, sorry, Ibra, Van Dijk. It's. I mean, the guy. I forget his name now. The guy at Nottingham Forest. I mean, he's bloody
Milenkovic.
Yeah,
my incredible.
God. And then you can see why. No disrespect, but the Danish striker in Man United, young boy, physically strong.
Yeah.
You see him playing those games, he gets bullied. He gets absolutely bullied.
You've got to be physical, haven't you?
Yeah,
at the
and
top,
that's why
real top level now.
he's not succeeded. And I don't think at the moment the way that Norwegian football is, if I be a little bit controversial now, I'm going to turn around and blame the refereeing in Norwegian football, the philosophy of Norwegian refereeing in general, from top working its way down to the bottom. The lack of physical contact that they won't allow in football. The whistle blowing is like constant. I see it now, even at youth level, at our level. The referees are not. They stop this physical contact, and while the NFF refereeing hierarchy continue with this philosophy that this is what they want to follow, they're always going to struggle to produce players that are more physical. So if you go to, I remember taking a team over to Denmark and playing on grass, a little bit different as well. And one of my players was running down the wing, and the left back follows him and makes a crushing. It's a great tackle. In England we'd be like cheering. And I remember all my parents. They were like 13 years. No, they were 12, and the parents were like, "Hey, Doma, like referee." Do you know what I mean? And I said to them, "Hey, be quiet. I don't want to hear that, because there's nothing wrong with it. But the mentality that is like any contact, whistle, blow the whistle, free kick. They have this stupid thing, and it is really stupid in Norwegian football, where if the referee deems that you do something wrong, you get a yellow card and you've got to go off for 5 minutes in a sin bin. It's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. It's unbelievable. So
do you know what? This never used to happen. When I first got into Norwegian football, I loved it because what was, say, a yellow card over here in the UK, the ref lets it go. What is a red in some leagues is just a yellow in Norway. I like that the country seemed to have its own distinct refereeing style. Yeah. But unfortunately, they've been completely influenced by the overall authorities, UEFA, FIFA, whatever.
Yeah.
They want to bring every country into line. So everyone's are basically off the same hymn sheet.
yeah,
VAR is a big part of that. I mean, that
yeah,
match I watched the other night on Monday, Vålerenga K from Oslo, the guy that got sent off. I
yeah,
mean, okay, by the letter of the FIFA law or whatever, it
yeah.
may be a red, but I don't think anyone else could really believe that it was a red.
Mm,
Um, it's ridiculous, and that would never have happened years ago.
no,
It's just changed in the wrong way, and I
yeah,
don't. It doesn't suit Norwegian football. It doesn't suit Norwegian
no,
football.
it
Does it?
doesn't. It doesn't. And you know, it's like the definition of what is physicality, shoulder to shoulder. You know, using your strength and stuff. That's like it's going. It's horrendous. So, and the worst thing is, it's not so much at the top level; it's at youth level. This is the problem. So when you get Norwegian teams that go away and play, like now, I actually played golf this morning with the academy director from Sandefjord, and they went over and played Elsberg, is it in Denmark, which are like a medium academy team in Denmark, and he said and they've improved a lot. They've improved a lot in Sandefjord football with their academy. They were producing a lot of good players. And he said, when we went over there, he said the big difference was the physicality of the Danish. Actually, at the youth level, they were more physical, and the referee was allowing more contact. So it took them. He said it took us a while to be like, oh, hang on, I can make that tackle then, and I'm not going to get penalised. And of course, in the end, the players adjust. They're not stupid. Their football IQ is pretty high. So then they adjust. They adjust inside the game. But it's interesting to see the little difference in culture. And I think if you take away physicality of the game, um, you're going to produce players that are just not used to that level. And so, are you going to produce strong defenders that are used to defending like that? No, you're not. I'm sorry, but it is part of it, and I don't think people talk about it enough in Norwegian football for me. But then, if you speak to the referees in Vestfold in this county, I would probably say I'm not high on their birthday card list.
Yeah, I think you're right. What's going to happen is you're going to end up with producing players who are very, very good technically,
Yep.
quick, good pressers, things
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
But unless you're like a physical mismatch freak, almost like Haaland, say,
Yep.
then there's no real room for the strong physical players in
No.
terms of raw strength, height, bullying
Yeah.
players to come through, because they'll always go for the technical
Yeah.
players. So they've got to be
Yeah.
careful. I think
Yeah.
that they've got to be, and what will happen there, Shaun, eventually they'll have to go the other way or make steps to go the other way, unless this red tape that FIFA keep reeling out is
Yeah.
is gospel.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way I would see it.
But I think
Oh
I think I think for me in football in general, it's a little bit like fashion. Things spin around. Things spin around, and it starts to go back. Oh, we need to bring that back into the game a bit more. So
yeah,
sometimes the kind of if you want the trend, it starts to change a little bit, doesn't it?
yeah, it certainly is the case. Okay, so I will finish off just by wishing you the very best of luck for the rest of this season.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've not the actual Formula League for you. There's some really interesting names in your league, by the way. There was a team called Ready,
Yeah.
Locomotive Oslo.
Yeah. Locomotive Oslo. Yeah.
What a
Ready.
name,
Go.
Drovback
Go.
Froggen. Some
Yeah. Drop
sensational
back. Drop
names.
back. Yeah.
You're
Drop
confident
back.
in turning this one around, then, Shaun. I mean, you've been involved in so many down the years, promotion battles, relegation battles.
Yeah.
You know what you're dealing with here to turn this around.
Yeah, definitely. And we're trying to bring in a couple of new players as well at the moment. And that's like everybody's trying to do the same thing. So sometimes I have to kind of dig a little bit in the dirt to find a diamond, and then it's up to me to kind of polish it. And that's the way we kind of work because we don't have the budget to bring in certain level of players. So that there's a couple of local boys now that we're looking at, and they're doing really well in the next league down. So we're bringing a couple of them on trial. But I think the biggest thing for the players is that they can see that the coaching staff, like myself, predominantly because I'm lucky enough to be a full-time coach. I get paid by the club 100%. So they see that we're calm on the bench, we're calm in the training, we're not losing our temper, we're not shouting, we're not being stupid. Like you say, I have the experience. I've been here many times at different levels, so that's what they need, someone to be calm, obviously demanding. We work really hard with videos, and that's what we use. WhatsApp, it's a great thing. You know what kids are like nowadays, all the younger generation, they walk around with a mobile phone attached to their heads, don't they? So I get clips. I send them clips on VO, from the VO onto WhatsApp. Hey, here's 5 clips. What do you think about this? Come back to me. Blah blah blah. And so, we're working hard. That's all you can do. And I said
of
to the
course.
boys, there's no way out of it. There's only one way, and that's by working hard and staying and being together. That's the most important thing.
Joe, I really like that calm approach that you said there, because on the last episode with Jonathan, we were talking about the Haugesund manager, Sanjeev Manoran, who's sadly now lost his job. Actually, been two recent departures. Jürgen Isnes departed the Stroms Godset as well. But Manoran, I just sensed that.
Didn't know when did he go?
If it's not, then I think it's going to happen.
Wow.
Strong links there. But
what a shame. I really like that guy.
Top bloke. But with Manoran, I just sensed that there was so much panic on the bench as soon as one decision went against them, and I don't think it was conveying onto the players very well in that respect. Again, I don't know enough about the guy. I'm sure he's a brilliant coach, in behind the scenes and stuff, but there's so much about the code of conduct and experience doesn't matter. So we're back in here absolutely to get out of the little trouble you're in right now and have a great season, Shaun. We really appreciate your time as well, as always, on the Nordic Football Podcast. And I'm sure our paths will cross again. So best of luck, and we'll see you around in the future. And thanks to everyone who watched. Remember, hit that like button and subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching, and we'll see you next time on the Nordic Football Podcast. Take care.